Welcome to the Wellness on Purpose podcast, your go-to source for impactful, educational, and realistic information designed to propel you forward on your journey to intentional well-being, not just for today, but for the well-being of future generations. Join us as we dive into insightful conversation with industry and brand leaders in the ever-evolving landscape of the health and wellness industry. Discover the latest trends, gain valuable perspectives, and uncover practical tips to elevate your wellness journey starting today. This podcast is brought to you by Joanne's Place Health Foods, your trusted partner in health, located in the heart of Peterborough and Lindsay, Ontario. I'm your host, Marissa Laughlin, and I'm thrilled to be guiding you through this season of the Wellness on Purpose podcast. Hello everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. As always, so excited to be here and really excited for this episode. I am joined by a previous guest, Jason Watkin from Purica Supplements. And if you've been listening to the podcast for some time, you will know that Jason has been on the podcast many times to talk about all different health and wellness topics. And he is actually one of the most downloaded episode guests that we've had because he is honestly so knowledgeable in life experiences, knowledgeable in health and wellness. He is so integrated into the world of wellness, and he's just incredibly inspiring to talk to. So he's one of my favorite guests, and I'm so excited for him to be joining us again this year on the podcast. So today we are actually going to be talking about a new product that Purica is launching, and that is called Shilajit. Shilajit is one of the upcoming popular trends that we are seeing in the health and wellness space. However, it has been around for a very, very long time. So Jason is going to tell us all about things Shilajit and whether or not it is as good as everyone says it is. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Jason back on to the podcast today. Hello, Jason. Welcome back to the Wellness on Purpose podcast. How are you doing today?
Very good. How about yourself?
I'm good. So happy to have you back this year to talk about some very important key ingredients and also educational points of ingredients in the health and wellness world. So thank you so much for being here again. Today in particular, we're going to be talking about Shilajit and why this is gaining so much attention in the health and wellness space. And I don't think a lot of people even know what this ingredient is, where it comes from. So we're going to get into the nitty-gritty details of all of that. But can you first just start by simply explaining what this ingredient is that we're hearing about?
So Shilajit, as opposed to where they're getting fulvic acid from peat moss, low level, and people are calling it Shilajit. So it's technically called Shilajit. And it means conqueror of mountains or conqueror of rock. And in particular, in the Ayurvedic system and the Tibetan system, so of India, Tibet, and the Bhutan, Nepal, those areas, they found out about it because when the Sherpas, the Tibetan, the guides, be traveling through the Himalayas at high altitude, so between 1,000 to 5,000 meters, they found this kind of resinous exudate coming out of fractures in the rock. And when the monkeys in those areas were eating the exudates, which they did, those groups of monkeys were much more energetic and robust and long-lived. So this is how the story goes. Anyways, the Sherpas started consuming this, and it gave them a lot more strength and energy to obviously go through those treks in the Himalayas. So that's where it kind of came from. It's an exudate. It's mixing of organic decomposing matter, which would be called the humic substances. And it's mixing with the mineralization and everything in the mountain. Why I think it might finally be becoming popular here, because it's again like some of the medicinal mushrooms. It's right at the top of their medicine. In Tibetan, they used to treat almost everything to do with heat, which we would say as inflammation or pain. They call heat, right? Which makes sense. You feel heat, you see heat, in your skin, digestive tract, your joints. They just call it that and they treat it. But it's basically an adaptogen that treats many things. So it's been around for all this time. Why is it all of a sudden gaining popularity? My guess is because in gardening and hydroponics, they use the humic substances to initiate better plant growth. Humic substances, again, would be humic acid and fulvic acid are the key ones you're looking at. So I think maybe from that and seeing what it does to the mitochondria, which are your strong energy storehouses and manufacture the energy for your ATP, seeing what they do, then obviously maybe extrapolating that onto human and then seeing the data from actual Shilajit, which has fulvic acid in it, but that is definitely not all that it is there.
Okay. So then, if this has been around for some time, there must be some science behind this. This isn't just another ingredient that we're seeing pop up in formulations and people using this on a day-to-day basis. This is a legitimate ingredient that has been used in treating many different modalities then.
Yeah, and I think again the idea of the science. Yes, there's definite science, and some pretty strong science, especially when you're talking about testosterone and DHEA, which I'll get into a second. But as with any of the ancient kinds of medicine, so say Tibetan medicine, which is based on the Buddhist and the Burn traditions, then you've got your TCM, which is based in the core of the Taoist and the Chan system, and then Ayurvedic, which is based on the Vedic tradition, and then the Himalayan traditions based on the shamanic tradition. Their language is a lot different. So they talk about more subtle levels of being that a lot of in science they haven't yet accepted, but they're starting to go that route because of theoretical quantum physics and where that's pointing us to. But we still haven't got that way, so we're still reductionists, focusing on different material aspects. The problem with the basically science on natural ingredients compared to pharmaceutical is it's slower going because there's no money in it. You can't patent these ingredients, and sometimes you can patent a biochemical process which protects you somewhat. But once you put all the money, which is expensive and time consuming, into those studies, and then you get the results, then anybody else could use it. So there's not really any protection. Whereas in the pharmaceutical realms, they get full protection for years if they produce something. So this is unfortunate, but having said that, the science still slowly does come because there's granting and things happen or whatever. So right now, the science on it is when you point to the ancient use, because it is adaptogenic, they talk about as invigorating everything. And as a matter of fact, when the name itself, Shilajit, and in Tibetan, it's Chashu, right? That term Shilajit means conqueror of mountains, and it in not just at a literal level, they considered it like one of those things that is almost like a cure-all. Anything you when you give Shilajit in any condition, it will help to improve the condition, but also in a preventative way helps to create a more robust individual. Okay, so then you start thinking about that from a Western perspective. Usually they're thinking about where should I put this that I can make money from it if I'm going to do any studies at all. And a lot of that has to do with longevity then. And even if you don't say the words anti-aging, you think whatever about that, still people are looking for something that is age defying. Especially with mine, that's a huge one. I don't want to lose my memory. I don't want to get dementia. With my body, I don't want to be so achy and inflexible that I can't even move anymore. Where's the enjoyment? So these kind of things get in, and then there's the serious conditions. Shilajit's used for all of those different types of things. And in the science, one of the things that seems to be an area of strong interest now is with hormones. So Shilajit is used in women's issue just as much as men's. But a lot of the men that were the Sherpas and that taking it, seeing the robust nature of those people, they're thinking, okay, it must affect things like testosterone and DHEA, like a mother hormone. So sure enough, they tested it. And yes, it did, in fact, increase testosterone, and not just a bit, significantly. So what I'm going to be giving numbers on right now, if you try to remember this, it's between 25 and 35% for all these different things. It's that range. Like number one, it increases the absorption and assimilation of antioxidants, for instance, vitamin C, vitamin E, naturally produce superoxide dismutase. and coenzyme Q10, also produced in the body. It increases their absorption and assimilation by 25-30%. When it comes to hormones, with increasing testosterone, this is just 200 milligrams. That would be equivalent, when you're talking about with ours, of 1 cap a day, or 500 up to 500 milligrams would be 2 caps a day. That's 250 each. Increasing testosterone in men by 35% is super significant. But what they also found in the trials was that not only was it increasing testosterone significantly, in the northern climates, we seem to have drops in testosterone and other hormones in the female side downwards. And that, to me, I'm thinking that is probably due to the lack of sunshine, and it changes the rhythm in your system and affects the pineal gland, right? And melatonin and all these other master hormones are affected by sun, thereby dropping your hormones. Now, in testosterone's sake, that's huge. So testosterone, when it drops, obviously it's affecting libido. It's affecting muscularity and ability to maintain and grow muscle, but it's also initiating fat storage because testosterone is associated with muscle growth and manufacture and things like that, anabolism and anti-catabolic action. Instead, is increasing the production of fat as a storage. So it's dropping your metabolism, dropping your libido, dropping your metabolics overall. And so if you can increase that even in the winter months when it traditionally drops quite a bit, this is huge. This is an interesting point. Is with the testosterone, it doesn't seem to be increasing luteinizing hormone at the same time. What does that mean? It indicates that it's not active on brain tissue and in pituitary and things like that are initiating this drive of testosterone. In men, it seems to be affecting the testes. Now, the other thing that it does do, though, in the trials, it's showing that it has an effect on the HPA, or the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal. That's your stress mode, in mitigating and decreasing that, which then indirectly will, in women and men, help to regulate metabolic hormones that are not being neutralized or inhibited or counteracted by high stress hormones. In other words, all of your hormones, thyroid, the sex steroids, everything that helps the rhythm through your life will be improved because, like mushrooms, it's helping you to de-stress. But on another level, it's also directly in men increasing the production of testosterone, looks like via the testes. And 35%, that's super significant. On top of that, to mention for women and men, the anti-aging type of master hormone, mother hormone, that will convert into different hormones is DHEA. And interestingly enough, it increases DHEA levels as significantly as testosterone. So basically 35%. What does that mean? Everything about that hormone, it screams youthfulness, anti-aging, that type of thing. You can get that by prescription, things like that. We can't give it a supplement anymore in Canada or through the States, but this is increasing that production. Similar to things like ashwagandha and medicinal mushrooms, but at an even more intense rate. So I think this is a huge thing, and we have it affecting all different types of conditions. But when I get into maybe next, we can talk about how it impacts the mitochondria.
Yes, we're going to come back to energy because I want to just touch on a few things that you mentioned. So essentially, what we know is it adaptogen. So it's going to help the body either bring levels down or support secretion. You talked a lot about hormone support there. And I think everybody can relate to whether it's your stress hormones or sex hormones. There's a lot of people who are struggling with imbalance there. So that's amazing. But I want to specifically touch on the DHEA because we get so many people come in to Joanne's place and they ask for this in a supplementation form. And as you said, it is no longer something that you can just buy off the shelf. You can get a prescription for it, but there's a lot of, back end stuff to that. So you're saying this is really helping with longevity, really helping to have that youthfulness, having that high DHEA production as well, which is fantastic. So when we have those hormones in balance and working optimally, That can also kind of translate to proper energy production and what you want to talk about mitochondria as well. So how do we talk about, or what should we talk about in terms of energy production specifically for taking the Shilajit?
Okay, and there again, I like how you introduce that because there's so many factors involved in overall health and well-being, and that a lot of that has to be centered in presence where you feel right here, right now. When you feel that sense, I'm not talking a big high in the sky idea. Well, it is, but bring it down to earth. When you're totally present and you're in that parasympathetic state, which I've talked to in former podcasts, that's what all the ancient traditions of medicine were trying to work towards. It's utter simplicity. Big systems of medicine develop around that because the mind needs that. But when you feel that state of presence, hormones are nicely balanced, stress hormones are very low, your body is all in a state of absorption, assimilation, healing, and not in a state of stress where it's breaking itself down to fight, run, or freeze, or fake, that kind of thing. The idea is hormones are huge, but mitochondria is finally getting really its due in this field, in the whole field of medicine. And interestingly enough, if you look at mitochondria, it's an organelle, it's inside the cell, right? So inside the cell, you have these little organelles. But what the theory is, and there seems to be a lot of credence towards this, is that at one point in time, long, long ago, mitochondria was an organism in its own. And then it came across another organism, which became plant and animal cells eventually, and there was a symbiotic relationship. So this mitochondria got the protection of the outer shell of, say, the eukaryotic animal cell, but now it's engulfed and it's producing energy for that cell, and it's receiving benefits from the cell for itself, for survival. And then they formed a symbiotic relationship, which then turned into something that looks like one thing, which is really weird because if you think about it as ourselves, if you get back to ancient wisdom tradition, not only are we our cells and our microbiome, and they even produce compounds that change your mood and everything. So who are you? But now you've got this other thing where we're not really one thing, even composed of cells. It's two different organisms living together, functioning as a single cell that builds now our whole body, which is really interesting. So that part's really interesting. Go on and on about that. But then when you talk about mitochondria at a scientific level, when it comes to energy. So if you put this simply, inside the mitochondria, they're producing ATP, our energy molecule, from the foods we eat. And so what they do, say protein, fats, and carbs, right? Is inside the mitochondria, they're converting the breakdown products of those proteins, fats, and carbs into acetate. You don't really need to know that. The acetate is then oxidized, and in the process of that, it's converted into carbon dioxide, which you breathe out, and ATP. So it started the Krebs cycle, which you might have heard about. It's inside the mitochondria, inside your cell, and it's producing your ATP. And then you breathe out the carbon dioxide. But you hear a lot of forms of different minerals in the Krebs cycle form. One of the most popular is citrate, the succinates, the alpha ketoglutarate or alpha ketoglutarate, the malates. Those are Krebs cycle intermediates that are produced in this cycle that have many different benefits. You got to look them up for yourself, each one. Just by taking the forms of those minerals, you're also getting the Krebs cycle intermediates, which are driving a whole bunch of processes involved in energy and longevity and proper functioning of the body and hormonal health, so many different things. Okay, so get back to that. Krebs cycle is converting your food through oxidation into energy, but it's also producing some reducing agents. You don't need to know about this, but NADH is one and FADH2. And those two are then enter into the electron transport chain, which is also in the mitochondria. So first is the Krebs cycle, turning your foodstuffs into ATP and these reducing agents, NADH and FADH2. They're in the membrane of the mitochondria. That one produces most of your ATP, most of your energy is produced by this cycle, and NADH and FADH2 from the Krebs cycle help to drive that whole process. So that you can see that the mitochondria are huge for our whole body. Without them, we wouldn't be able to adapt or survive or anything. They're producing all the energy and everything for us. They're producing that the ability to build your whole body and maintain your body is driven right at that core level of the mitochondria. And so with time and aging and stress, these start to decrease in function and produce suboptimal levels of basically your energy. So you're going to start feeling fatigued and even leading to chronic fatigue. And then all the different conditions that come from chronic fatigue and stress and everything else, turning you into that state where all your hormones get even more screwed up, right? So then there's also when the theory before, and still holds true, there's arguments to this, but like a car, if you don't change the oil and it gets older and older over time, it starts spewing stuff out. Well, the mitochondria do the same thing because all these things aren't perfectly efficient. They give off kind of a waste idea or reactive oxygen species or free radicals, and that can start to be a detriment to your overall health. And so that's why you take antioxidants and all these things to help with that. Okay, so what can help the mitochondria function? And what is this big thrust with mitochondria? I don't think there's another thing that's better that they've seen in what they're seeing now as what Shilajit does. And one part of that, yes, is the fulvic acid, right? So what is fulvic acid? So again, fulvic acid is a portion of the Shilajit, which is grown in the Himalayas. Peat moss and low-level fulvic acid protection, that's not Shilajit. That's a totally different entity, but it does have fulvic acid and humic acid, similar to what Shilajit has. Shilajit has over 40 different minerals. It has urolithins, similar compounds found in pomegranate, that can improve the functioning of the mitochondria. So does fulvic acid. Fulvic acid is a humic substance, something that comes from decomposition over thousands to millions of years is what's happening there. That they've decomposed and exuded out of the rock and broke the rock down and extracted the minerals into itself. Humic acid and fulvic acid are both humic substances, right? That's what's the confusion. They're humic substances. Humic acid is one, fulvic acid is another. What's better? Because you're going to see them both out there in different supplements, even outside of Shilajit. Humic acid is a larger structure, and it has a lower range of being soluble in a lower pH range. Fulvic acid is a smaller compound and has a broader range of pH where it remains soluble. So that's huge right in itself. But then what does it do then? Well, they both are driving minerals and different substances into the mitochondria. So what's going to be better there? Well, fulvic acid has proven itself over and over and over again with gardeners and including hydroponics to drive the nutrients into the mitochondria of plants. And how does it do that? It's smaller and soluble at a broader pH range. So you're going to get a much better effect. So that's huge in itself, right? So you can get fulvic acid from like peat bogs and things like that, low level. But also you can get a lot of heavy metals and other contaminants at low level. The higher the level, way up in the Himalayas, then you're not dealing with all these different contaminants and all the different heavy metal structures. They're typically at lower levels because they're sinking. That's just like a broad spectrum way of putting it. The other thing about it is when you look, so in other words, Shilajit improves the mitochondrial function. What does that mean? It means everything in your body is going to function better. What are you going to see first? Changes in energy and ability to perform or be active for longer periods of time and increasing strength. And that all the clarity of mind, all these things start to come from that. But base level, that's why they used it for everything. In Tibetan and Ayurvedic medicine, it was given for everything. And if you watch the Sherpa up in the mountains, similar to when you watch the Aztecs on Chia and Nepal, and the Spaniards couldn't believe how intense they were and how long they couldn't keep up to them. Same as the Sherpas. They could be carrying huge loads. You're carrying nothing, and they can still go faster and for longer than you. Well, they're depending on Shilajit. That's one of their mainstays. So what are you looking at now? Well, you have to look at the things that can happen when you're getting fulvic acid substances promoted as Shilajit. Is it's a totally different animal. So benefits on all round, but you can't call fulvic acid Shilajit because there's all these other compounds in it. And so that's where for us, because there is the danger that people are calling different things or sourcing it from different areas, that they have heavy metals, that they have this and that. So I've been wanting to do this for 11 years. And number one, it only came in an exudate like a resin. And I thought, like I said to you earlier, only the kind of hippie people are going to do that. Fine, but that's not going to be a market. Secondly, you don't know how many heavy metals and things are in there because you don't know where it's sourced. Could be very low level mountain or in these peat bogs, and that's going to be contaminants and everything else. So we just went with, when we finally were ready, and with this company called Prima V, or the substance Prima V, is very, very pure. And then it's sourced from 1,000 to 5,000 meters, exactly what they use in Tibetan and Ayurvedic medicine. So a completely different structure that high up. Just like, here's an example. All ancient herbalists and ancient medicines, they always look for when is it grown, where is it grown, what time of the year is it? And you think that all sounds hokey, but it's not. If you look at when things are grown, there's that movie Into the Wild where that fella died because he ate a plant that everybody eats. I think it's garlic or wild onion. And they didn't even know, even in botany, that at a certain time of the year, it became toxic. So the idea is, yes, the environment and the time of year, all those things affect it. So we're picking something that's sourced, high elevation, like high bush blueberries have far higher levels of anthocyanins than low bush cultivars. So far more healthy because they produce substances to protect themselves from the sun. So anyways, you have to make sure that the heavy metals are not high, and true Shilajit from high up doesn't have that issue. Others do. Also, there's a broad range of compounds. I mentioned two, fulvic acid and urolithins. They both impact the mitochondria. They both increase your energy levels and change all these different things. And I think, I hope I segued that pomegranate seems to be one that has the urolithins as well. Another thing that I would add, if you're really looking at mitochondrial health, which is huge, so CoQ10 and Shilajit for mitochondrial health is huge as antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, increase the energy capacity, your ability to build ATP, which is going to make you feel way more youthful. And all these conditions of inflammation and breakdown will be helped by that. Or you can add it to anything you're doing to improve results. In anything, any condition you have, even really severe, add it. It doesn't have these antagonistic effects with drugs or different things. It's an adaptogen. And the other one that's being talked about a lot is for mitochondrial health is to avoid using the omega-6 seed oils all the time. They're ubiquitous. We have so much of it, like sunflower oil, cottonseed, you name it. There's all sorts of different things. If you can drop those because they're not healthy, especially when they're damaged, and they do impact the mitochondrial health. So go with things like olive oil and sesame and butter, like purified butter. All those types of things are going to be a lot better for mitochondrial health. So if you're doing those three things together, the Shilajit, CoQ10, and dropping the seed oils of the omega-6 type, this can make huge changes in your health. That an athlete will feel a lot quicker than you because you can see your difference in performance. Not only your strength, but also your endurance, how long you can go. You can see it quickly happening with Shilajit. And that's another indicator of, and that's again why they became so big, because the results start happening pretty quickly. But if you want to measure different hormones and things like that, that could be anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks where you're really measuring significant changes that they could measure in your doctor's office.
Yeah. And I think it's important to just touch on here because we get a lot of people who come in looking for it for detoxification. And I think people just think detoxification going to the bathroom. Like, I think that's the first thing that people think of. But we need to think about our energy levels, our cell turnover, the Krebs cycles, all of those things that you touched on. That's all part of detoxification. So when we can use an ingredient to better support those systems, we are naturally going to have that detoxification effect happening through the body, which is really, really good and beneficial. Quick pause in today's episode because I want to talk to you about a transformational online program. In case you missed it, Joanne's Place released an online program called the Wellness on Purpose Program to Educate You last year. And our intention with this program is to make this education more accessible for our community to better support their wellness journeys. This program promotes sustainable and realistic changes, and it really focuses on the foundational pillars of every single person's health: your nutrition, your sleep, your stress, and also movement. If you want to get started today, click the link in the description below to learn more about the Wellness on Purpose program. By the way, it's completely free and you can move at your own pace from the comfort of your own home. Now let's get back to the episode. Can you take this every day long term, or do you think that this should be something that you kind of cycle on and off of?
So this is something when they incorporated medicine and the Sherpas, they take it all the time. And
Yeah.
it's been ongoing for thousands of years. And I would recommend, say when you're really young, still, here's what I think about, you know how it's good to always take a multivitamin mineral because you're just covering your bases, right? A good one is the food sources, the toxicity of the environment, all the things about modernity is completely different than 2000 years ago. So even young people are dealing with similar things that in ancient times would have only happened to elderly people or people that had dysfunction of their metabolism, that they were born with that. We're seeing that in young people now. So I think anybody can take it. You can take it ongoing. It's something that is just literally you're taking one tiny capsule per day and it's doing a ton. And that's what the data showed. And if you want to ramp it up, say for large changes in hormones and things like that, like DHA and testosterone, and it's not going to throw it over and above in men, and it's not going to throw testosterone huge in women, like I said, because it seems to be coming from the testes, not from the brain hormone system, uh, indicated because luteinizing hormone is not increasing with it. So, anyways, it's balancing all your hormones. It's improving your energy cycle. And like you just said, part of being healthy, whether you're young or old, especially when you're old, even becomes more cumulative, but when you're young, are the detoxification systems. And the detoxification systems function most ideally, like you said, when you're in a more pleasing state, more at ease, mind and body at ease, free and clear is what we normally talk about. But they're also intensely energy dependent. So if the mitochondria aren't functioning, then the detoxification systems can't function. And I mean, so then everything starts accumulating. And that's part of aging, right? Where you see it in the skin, parts of your body, things are accumulating because your detoxification systems are starting to decline or become defunct. And almost all of that, most of it has to do with the mitochondria function, which is dropping over time. And so how do you gain back the mitochondria function? Again, Shilajit would be the core, CoQ10, and then depleting the seed oils. It's going to be the best benefits. Each one of those is going to improve it, but all three of those would be pretty significant. There's a lot of other things you can do, obviously, but these are three core things. And Shilajit plays a major role now. It should be way, way, way bigger than it is here, but but like anything here, it's dominated by the pharmaceutical industry or wherever there's money. And now the pharmaceutical industry is buying up our industry quite quickly. Nestle is also buying up other pharmaceuticals. So it's changing rapidly because they know this industry is growing and it's going to be the future. What was the ancient past is now going to be the future again because of what happened in the last 4 years and a lot of loss of confidence. So now things are changing with the way you concentrate, extract, purify to make sure you don't have toxins, all the things they wouldn't have had to worry about 2,000 years ago, but now we do. So you're going to get really potent things like the Shilajit starting to appear because of the purification methods and the concentration and the ease of use. Because let's face it, most of us are not going to go scraping exudates off rocks and eating that. So this is what modernity has to offer, in my opinion, in a big way, is concentrating and making these things more palatable for all of us to take and getting these really strong effects so you can feel. The science is going to come slowly. So there you go. It's there. It's going to go slowly over the years and years. So you either opt to take it now or you wait until all the science is in, but they've been using it for 1,000 years. I opted in. I can feel it even after the first week that I've been taking it. I feel a difference. So, once you go past 50, things start to decline more and more, as people will attest. They say 45 with your vision and everything. So even those types of things, don't think that they're gone because some of these things start to slowly come back. And you go, what is happening? And that's what I think these really strong substances that have ancient use can start to do that we just didn't think was possible.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, one, obviously, we're in the health and wellness industry. We are loving the shift in people, educating themselves, looking for alternatives, trusting in other alternative medicine types, and we love to see it. But I think it's really, really important to understand that not all things are made the same way. They're not all extracted the same way. They're not all coming from the same region. And not all companies have the same integrity across the board. And I will speak to this at the top of my lungs, coming from a health food store and seeing so many brands, but I know, Purica, you're committed to quality, sustainability, making sure that the products you put out are amazing quality. So can you talk about the formulation that went into you guys creating your Shilajit and why you would say it's at that high level that we need for consumption?
So the one company that we partner with is Prima B, and everything that they do is produced for purity and clarity of ingredient or compound ratios. So they're looking at preserving the whole ratio, not just extracting certain compounds out. Then it's more like a drug or synthetic materialistic kind of look. It's preserving the entire integrity, but making sure there's no contaminants. What does that mean? Like all the different microbes that can contaminate in different areas or even in your production where things are contaminating, whether it be different microbes like bacteria or yeast or molds. They're all over the place in our whole world. You can't get away from them, but in a manufacturing facility, you want to try to minimize all of those completely so then you don't have to irradiate the substance because that damages it. So we first get that material, which is concentrated to a really high concentration using pure water extracting, which still is preserving everything, but it's also pulling up more of the water-soluble extracted compounds, like the fulvic acid, humic acid, things like that. Urolithins are in there. And then you've got vitamins, minerals, everything, over 40 minerals in there. Furthermore, then in our facility, so we're a Canadian company that actually manufactures. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but most companies don't manufacture anymore. They just transfer everything out to third party. That's fine, but we're invested right at the root, and we have 3 big buildings, 2 in the manufacturing cycle. So basically, what are we looking at? Okay, what do we want for the end user, which includes ourselves, because we all take these different supplements, and we have a huge veterinary side. So people's animals, what do we need? Number one is, especially when you're dealing with resins, like Shilajit, an extractor or dried with a resin, any kind of resinous or oily substance, when you put it in plastic bottles, exposed to heat and light and oxygen, those plastic bottles are degrading slowly but surely, right, into the product. And then those compounds they know from different plastics and that have effects on our hormones and a whole range of other things, which we don't want. So we opted to follow a company called Silus, that Floridic iron and Flora 25 years ago, where they're from Europe and they go, okay, glass bottles, they're not diffusing and things entering. They're the cream of the crop form of manufacture. So that if you put something in those glass bottles, you're sure nothing's getting from the glass into the product and changing its structure, which happens daily, right? And then metal lids for the same purpose. We're manufacturing in a completely sterile environment, so we don't have all the microbes and everything in there. And then we're testing before and after for microbes, for heavy metals, right? For different solvents. There's pages and pages of testing now, which they never would have had to do thousands of years ago, for pesticides and solvent residues that are all over the environment. They have to make sure are not in there. So we test for all of that ourselves. And then once it's cleared through third-party certification and labs, then we put it out to you. We do the exact same thing, by the way, for the animals. So any of the pets, including our horse side or the zoo animals, we've done the exact same thing. We produce everything by human standards of manufacture. We've been doing that for 25 years. So that's where I think we stand by what we do. Secondly, we don't put anything out that we haven't tested on different people in our community, different clinicians and health stores and pharmacies that are selling the product, and different animals that are all our pets. We should see, does it actually work like they promote it to work, the company or in the literature? Because everybody can say whatever they want. We want our thing, we want people to feel it, the proof's in the pudding kind of idea. Otherwise, we don't even want to apply for the natural product number through Health Canada. So you can be assured that when we apply for something at Health Canada, We've already seen it work. And that's why we've even bothered for the application, including in some of our products, like, our recovery. We want it to work better than drugs, but also integrate with drugs. So that recovery came after years of development from that. Shilajit has thousands of years, and now medicine's changing again, and we're starting to go back to what the traditional medicines were doing. And again, it's all about finding that core presence, simplicity, when you just go like, and that's when real healing starts, absorption, assimilation, energy production, that you can really make a difference by whatever you're doing with your diet changes or your exercise or yoga or meditation or going out in nature more. All those things get much better effects if you can find something that helps you get that monkey off your back or just relax. And Shilajit plays a huge, huge role in that. And again, the clarity and the purity of it has to be really high. And that's what you'll be assured that we're always going to do for everything. And that's why we're excited to put it out. But it's also in a form now, in a capsule, that people can take easily, right?
Mm-hmm.
Simple.
Amazing. I think everyone listening right now is going to be headed into Joanne's place to pick up a bottle and start taking, because as you said, there's so many benefits. Hormone, I think energy alone, I think a lot of people underestimate how much that impacts the rest of the body. It's not just feeling sluggish day to day. It really has an impact on everything. So this is amazing. I want to thank you so much, Jason, for being on the podcast today to talk about all of the amazing benefits of Shilajit and the safeness around it, the testing, where it comes from. These answered a lot of questions that I know our staff have been asked of people coming in, and I didn't know a lot of this. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of this.
I always enjoy it. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for joining us for another insightful episode of the Wellness on Purpose podcast. We hope you found the information valuable and inspiring to support you along your wellness journey. Before we go, a quick reminder. The content shared in this podcast is for educational purposes only. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, it's important to remember that everyone's health journey is unique. We strongly recommend consulting with your healthcare professional or a qualified health practitioner for personalized advice tailored to your specific needs and circumstances. Your well-being is a priority, and speaking to a healthcare professional ensures that you receive guidance that best aligns with your individualized health goals. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, please reach out to us through our website. That's all for now. I hope you stay well, stay informed, and remember, your health is your greatest wealth. Until next time, take care.